In this video, we'll talk about how to use a BeautifulSoup library for HTML parsing. And usually to get an HTML code of a website, we use the requests library. And in the very simplified case, the code of a function that performs a request to a server and gets its response can be the following. For example, it takes some URL as an argument, it's a very basic example, but I want to use HTML file that I have prepared, the index.html, this one. First of all, I want to read it and get its content. And I can do it with the context manager with and the open function. With the open, I'm specifying the name of the file and save it to a f variable, and then I'm reading this file. Okay, I've got HTML code of a page. I have here two short divs and a container div with 4 row divs, and each row represents an employee or a freelancer. And each row div has nested child divs with the data I need. So there are name, salary, occupation. There are also some links and email. These children has various attributes. Some of them have only CSS ID or only CSS class. Some have dataset attribute. Links have href attributes. So, and our task as scrapers, as data miners, is first of all to reach somehow the data we need. And BeautifulSoup library provides many methods we can use to get needed data. But the choice of a certain method depends on what the layout a page has, and what can we use to link to a certain HTML tag. In my previous videos about eBay scraping or scraping a Ajax-driven website with the Steam store as an example, I used mainly the find and the find all methods. It's enough in most cases. The find and find all methods look for data from the top to the bottom of a page. For example, this index.html file has these two divs. Let's get one of them. And to use BeautifulSoup library, first of all, we have to install it, and it's a good idea to install also lxml library. Pip install bs4 lxml. If you need the request library, you can also add here the requests. Now let's import the BeautifulSoup class. And now I have to create an instance of the BeautifulSoup class. And the first argument of its constructor is an HTML code. And the second is the parser I want to use. I want to use lxml parser as the fastest one. And now let's find a div tag. I'm calling the find method of this soup variable. It's an instance of the BeautifulSoup class. And here the first argument is the tag I want to find. It's a div tag. Some of them. And we can see that the find method returns the first div he finds. This one. And for example, if the div with the to CSS class will be the first, and again the find method always returns the first element he finds. Okay, we can narrow the search by specifying attributes of needed tags. Let's find the div with the to CSS class. The second argument is the attribute of the tag. So I want to use CSS class, and the class is the reserved keyword in Python, and that's why we have to use the underscore here. And I want to get a div with a to CSS class. Let's run it, and I've got the tag, for example. I've got the div with the raw CSS class. It's a first raw div. And I want to focus your attention that the find method returns a BeautifulSoup object. And when we execute the code, we can see here the HTML code because I printed it. But actually the div variable is an instance of the BeautifulSoup tag object. It means that the div variable, the instance of the BeautifulSoup tag object, has all properties and all methods of the BeautifulSoup class. For example, the raw tags have links here. Let's get them. And here I want to use the div tag that I found before. And this time I'm calling the findAll method, and I need all A tags. And we can see that the findAll method returns a list with all A tags of the first raw div. To be exactly, the findAll method returns a result set object, but it behaves like lists. And again, each element of the result set object is a BeautifulSoup object with all its properties and methods. And the second way to pass into a method additional tags attributes is to use a dictionary where the key is the name of the attribute class, and the value of the key is the value of the attribute. Nothing changed. And if we want to use more strict search criteria, we can enumerate all its attributes in this dictionary, for example. I've got an exception that means the following. It means that BeautifulSoup cannot find a div with the raw CSS class and non-CSS ID. The find method returns non-object, and this exception said that non-type object has no attribute findAll. Because of find method returns none, then I tried to call the findAll method, and in this case it's convenient and it is necessary to use try except blocks, for example. Something like this. Okay, and how can we get data? For example, let's get href attribute of a link. Here I've got all links of the first raw div, and I want to use the first A tag. Sorry. I forgot to delete ID. Okay, this is the first link of the first raw div. And to get its text, we can just use the text property of an instance of the BeautifulSoup text. And I've got Google. If I need a value of some its attribute, I can use the get method. And as an argument, I'm passing in a name of needed attribute. And I've got href attribute of this a tag. Sometimes we need to perform a search from the bottom to the top of the page. And this can be useful when we need the parent tag which has no any specific attributes, but its child tag has such. For example, I delete the raw CSS class and the first div becomes just div. And to do it we can use the parent property. For example, I have here 4 divs that represent employee or a freelancer. Let's suppose that I need only the raw div, former raw div, that has the child tag with the John text. How can I do it? So let's find the div with the John text firstly. This one. I'm calling the find method. I need the div and I need the div with the text property that equals to John. I've got it. Okay, and now I want to find its parent container. And I've got this div, the first div. And now I want to complicate a bit the task. Suppose that the div with the John text has more than one parent. The first parent, the second parent. And if I execute my code, I am getting only the first parent tag. And let's suppose again that the first div also has the raw CSS class. Of course, I can use the parent property again to get this div, but if a div has some attributes, I can use the find parent method that has the same API as the find and find all. And so I want to find the div parent with the raw CSS class. And now I've got this raw. To find the sibling tags, we can use the find next sibling and find previous sibling. The sibling tags are tags that have one common parent tag. For example, all these raw tags are siblings. For example, let's suppose that I need to get the next raw tag, the second one. And I can do it if I call find next sibling. And I've got a raw of the Alan, the copywriter. This second row. Okay, the next case is to use filtering functions. For example, I have here 4 raw tags. There are copywriter, 2 copywriters, 1 designer and 1 developer. Let's suppose that I want to get only copywriters, and I can do it the following way. Let's get all employees. I want to find all divs with the raw class. Now I've got a list of all employees, and now let's get only copywriters. To do it, I want to define a filtering function that takes a tag as an argument. So let's say it will be isCopywriter that takes a tag as an argument, and the tag is the BeautifulSoup object. The copywriter or a programmer is a text of div with the occupation ID. And so, first of all, I have to get this text and check whether this text is the copywriter or not. Text is just an example. Sometimes I have to get the value of a certain attribute. So let's say that will be a text. I'm calling the find method. I need the ID. I'm sorry, I'm looking for the div tag with ID that equals to occupation. And then I want to get its text. Then I want to lower this text and I want to strip it. And then if copywriter is in text variable, then I can return the tag or I can return true. And otherwise I want to return none or false. The function is ready, and here I am creating the copywriters list, empty list, and then the for loop for employee in divs. I am checking if is copywriter. I am calling my filtering function and passing into it the employee variable. At each iteration of the for loop, the employee variable becomes an instance of the BeautifulSoup class. And I'm appending the copywriters list with this employee. And I've got 2 divs with Ellen, copywriter, and Kate, copywriter 2. To perform a search, we can also use regular expressions. A regular expression is just a search pattern. So let's suppose that a database was filled with different people, and I want to get all information about salaries. So I want to find a div with a dataset salary this time. I have to use here the dictionary because dataset is written with the dash, and without dictionary Python will try to subtract the set variable from the data variable. and I'll get an exception that data is not defined. So I have to use the dictionary here with the salary value. Okay, I've got those salaries. And we can see that the text of these tags is different. There are many junk data, but I need normalized data. So I have to get only numbers. So let's create a new function, the parse salary function, for example, that takes a string as an argument. And here, first of all, I want to create a search pattern. And it's convenient to use services like regex 101. And here we can test our regex. So let's copy this text here, Python, and I need to find only digits. So my regular expression will be the following: \d, that means digit, and then in curly brackets I'm specifying the length of this substring. So I think I need to get digits from 1 to 9 characters length, from 1 to 9, and we can see 4 matches. It's all I need. So my regular expression. Here in the parse salary function I have to define some variable that will contain my search pattern, my regular expression. And then I can use this pattern with the find all method. For example, salary find all. What I am looking for? I am looking for substring that matches this pattern, and where I can find it. I can find it in the s variable, in the s string. And here I want to call my parse string function. Find all returns a list, so I can use here the first element. And I've got only digits that I can save to a database or a CSV file. Something like this. If you want to watch some practical guide, consider to watch my eBay scrapping tutorial or Steam scrapping tutorial. If you like the video, please subscribe to the channel and thumb up.